Well, pro-lifers are rejoicing over the latest report issued by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which shows a steady national decrease in the number of abortions. The CDC reports there were 619,000 abortions in 2018 and 612,000 abortions in 2017, a drop of nearly 57% from the record high back in 1990, with a total of 1,429,247 abortions. The numbers haven't fallen this low since abortion was legalized nationwide in 1973. Here with more on this good news for the pro-life movement is Christy Hamrick with Students for Life of America. Christy, welcome to Newswatch.
Lenny, thanks so much for having me and for drawing attention to a great holiday story, really, something for us to celebrate.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you, were you surprised by this report, especially with all the efforts over the past few years to expand abortion rights with partial birth abortion?
I wasn't surprised by the results because of the trend lines. Between 2009 and 2018, the abortion rate has dropped 24%. But I have to say this with an asterisk because there's no national abortion reporting law. What we know about the abortion numbers in America come from what abortionists tell us. And California and New Hampshire, for example, report no data at all. So one of the things we at Students for Life call for is a national abortion reporting law. And when people hear this fact, this is a fake news fact I'm about to say, where they say that abortion is safer than childbirth, there's no way to make such a claim because we track childbirth in a way that we don't track abortion. It's not reported in the same way at all. And why? We're talking about 2018 today because we don't have more current numbers because, again, of the voluntary giving up of this information to the CDC or the Guttmacher Institute. That doesn't take away from the celebration, though, because this is how we've been tracking it for years. And we see this trend in the pro-life community as something to really celebrate.
Absolutely. Well, what do you think's making the difference? Why are we seeing this downward trend in abortions happening right now?
Well, it's funny. You might say we could steal a line from the current mask debate where you follow the science. If you look at ultrasounds and you look at what we know about fetal development, you look at just last week, a snowflake baby that was born who had been frozen for 27 years. The technology and the life science shows us that it's human life in the womb. And I think the support services have also tried to rise up through pregnancy care centers and churches and communities to support mothers and their children. These things are vital. But I did want to flag something in the data that tremendously concerned us, and I think we need to pay attention with the Biden-Harris administration. While the abortion rate is lower and at record lows, where it was taxpayer funded, in Illinois, for example, it went up more than 10%. In 2018, Illinois started to pay for abortion. President-elect, perhaps Biden and Harris, have talked very openly about intending to do more, get rid of the Hyde Amendment to pay for all abortion, add money back to Planned Parenthood. So in Illinois and in other states where they were paying for abortion, they got more abortion. In states where there was one abortion clinic, it went down. For example, in Missouri, with one abortion clinic, their abortion rate went down 35%. So we need to pay attention to the fact that we get more of what we pay for and less of what we don't. And so we don't want taxpayer-funded abortion.
Wow, that is really interesting and important statistic there. Thank you for sharing. Well, there's been a lot of restrictions, as you know, due to the COVID pandemic. Has this affected the grassroots effort to prevent abortions?
Well, at Students for Life, it's interesting. We have more than 1,250 groups in all 50 states. And so here were all these displaced students. And actually what we saw was a real increase in activism. We had to go online. We had to make virtual events. We needed to change our activism. But the pro-life generation really wanted to engage. They engaged in the election, in door knocking, we're going to be in Georgia coming up for the 2 Senate races. So COVID did a lot of things, but it also left people with time to get involved in new and creative ways. So we've actually seen a real increase in student activism because, and this is a sad fact, but because they've been displaced.
Christy, if President Trump leaves office, where do you see things going in the future for abortion and abortion rights?
Well, day one, I think very tragically, we will see a President Biden get rid of the Mexico City policy, and that means taxpayers will be funding abortions around the world. We'll probably see Biden get rid of the Protect Life rule, and that means allowing Planned Parenthood to market abortions to women who are trying to buy birth control and set abortion appointments and even push abortion. We'll probably see that $50 million that Planned Parenthood lost by taking a step out of Title X go back in. And that's day one with the stroke of a pen. President Trump also had an executive order to protect the free speech rights of pro-life students on campuses. Students for Life was there at the White House when that was signed. And I think you see, even in the story before, where the rights to free expression of churchgoers are being suppressed, we do worry about student pro-life rights on campuses to be able to speak up. Again, that's another executive order that will be gone. We look for them to move on the Hyde Amendment, and the Hyde Amendment limits the kinds of abortions that the government, that you, the taxpayer, are funding. So it was very clear during this election they wanted to get rid of Hyde, which means, again, taxpayer funding all abortion.
We're running out of time. Let me ask you real quick. Now with Justice Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court, who is a pro-life Catholic, does that give you hope, though, that perhaps some of these advances that have happened for pro-life will maybe have a safeguard?
It gives me hope that we'll have a fair hearing when we get to the Supreme Court. That's what we were fighting for, and I believe we deserve it. Human life in the womb deserves to be treated as human life. In the same way in which, Americans who were slaves were not valued by law, unborn humans are not valued by law. We can change that.
Amen. Christy Hammer with Students for Life, thanks so much for being with us. God bless you.
You too. Thanks for having me.